Our column stood about 20 kilometers from the Polish border. At exactly 4 o'clock in the morning we started moving towards Poland. As we rode in the truck, we joked about how zealously the Poles would salute us and shout, "Heil Hitler!" But after a while I noticed that our sergeant's face did not look as carefree as our mood. This gave me an unpleasant apprehension. One of our snipers was suddenly seized with panic. He jumped up from his seat, then sat down again, shaking. I thought the sergeant was going to yell at him. But he turned out to be an experienced soldier and just said, "It's good that some of you feel fear. Fear will help you to be careful in battle and keep you alive if things don't go as well as they used to. Just remember, cowards die first, control your fear." Perhaps the sergeant's speech was arrogant, but the general meaning of what he said was exactly that, and I memorized his words. It helped me a lot in all the battles. However, most of us did not pay much attention to the sergeant's words at that time. We were on our way to Poland to be victorious, and jokes were being cracked in the truck again. At 5 o'clock in the morning we crossed the Oder River, which was the Polish border. Tanks were ahead of us, other divisions were pulling behind us. But from the truck I could not even roughly estimate the number of troops. The roar of the engines of our equipment was very strong, and I had the feeling that much more serious forces were thrown against Poland than in the invasion of Czechoslovakia. When we crossed the border, I thought that now the Poles would open fire. But they didn't. Either they were not expecting us, or they were not going to resist. The silence, muffled only by the roar of the engines, seemed endless. I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe an hour, maybe two. But then somewhere in the distance there were guns, salvos, and small arms fire. The rumble of shots and explosions grew closer and closer, and before we knew it, the sergeant gave the order, "Everybody out, open fire on the Poles." We started to jump out of the truck in a hurry. Dawn was just beginning, but in the gloom I could see the Poles who were firing at our column. They used as cover the rough terrain, trees, and a few peasant houses nearby. The Poles were very numerous, but apparently our appearance took them by surprise, and so they did not even have time to make trenches. They had only a few hastily dug machine gun cells. It should be said here that in addition to small arms the enemy had machine guns and light anti-tank guns. But most interestingly, behind the main force I saw a lot of men on horseback. Back when we were still riding in the truck, the sergeant was telling us that they had cavalry, which is considered an elite branch of the military. There were a lot of people on horseback. Perhaps a whole cavalry regiment. But they stood still in indecision, and were in no hurry to rush to the attack. What could they do? Throwing sabers at our tanks would be ridiculous. We, of course, had a story that Polish lancers tried to attack armored vehicles with sabers, but I think it is just a story. I have never seen such a thing. Nevertheless, the Polish infantry were firing very hard at us. Their machine guns were not silent. Their guns managed to hit 3 of our tanks. We had to hide behind our armored vehicles. This did not save everyone, and there were already cries of wounded German soldiers. Naturally, there were also the first dead. At that time, I didn't think about it. I even forgot that I was a sniper. I just fired indiscriminately in the direction of the Poles. The rest of the guys in my platoon did the same. This went on for several minutes, until the sergeant yelled at us, "You snipers or whoever, destroy the Polish machine gunners." Hearing such a shout, I immediately came to my senses. A few moments later a man appeared in the crosshairs of my sight, firing a machine gun at us. I pulled the trigger. Through the telescopic sight I saw that another soldier jumped up to the Pole who had hit me, and another Pole took the place of his fallen comrade. This could not be allowed, and there was nothing left for me to do but to pull the bolt and pull the trigger again. This went on several more times. I was the only one in the platoon who had a telescopic sight that allowed me to kill enemies at such a distance in the dawn twilight. It was the first time I'd ever killed a live man. But I didn't think about it. My next target was the artillerymen who were firing an anti-tank gun at our armored vehicles. The first one I hit exactly in the chest, and then killed and wounded several more of them. And after another 10 to 15 minutes the battle quieted down. Our tanks did their job, they came close to the enemy positions, and the Poles turned to flight. Everyone was rejoicing we'd won. But I was sick, vomiting, thinking that for the first time in my life people had died by my hand. Then the sergeant came up to me and said, "You had to go through this. 20 years ago, I threw up like that the first time I killed a man. But you saved your comrades. That's the most important thing. Remember, if you pity the enemy, it may cost the life of your friend or even yourself. You're not even fighting for Hitler here, not for Germany, but for your friends and for yourself." The sergeant said the last words in a whisper, so that I was the only one who could hear them. You know, I thought about it many times during the war and afterward. I'm sure he was right, Sergeant. During the battle, my friends also managed to shoot a few Poles. But they took it easier, especially since they managed to kill fewer people than I did. I alone had killed 5 or 6 people, and wounded probably as many. There was confusion on my friends' faces, but nothing more. Everyone in my sniper platoon survived, but a few of our guys were wounded. The medics immediately rushed around them. "Will you help the wounded Poles?" I asked a naive question. One of the medics answered, "Sorry, kid, but your Poles will be on your conscience." We were ordered to help only the Germans. I felt sick again, but I restrained myself. There was no time to think about what had happened. The order to pursue the retreating Poles was given, and we rushed forward, stepping over the bodies of the enemy, over the corpses of our comrades. Some of the Poles were still alive and did not stop moaning. We almost tripped over the body of a Polish soldier, who was screaming, having lost both his legs. "No one will help him, he will suffer for a long time," my friend said quietly and pointed his rifle at the Pole. After a few seconds of hesitation, he fired. I felt nauseous again. But in that situation the act was really an act of mercy. Looking at him, I saw that my friend was shaking all over. The next morning we were again given breakfast at the field kitchen, and we were again given only 7 rounds of ammunition each. After that, our entire division took seats in the trucks again, and we drove to the northeast. Our destination was the Polish town of Kutno. By this time several other divisions had been pulled to it, and the town was besieged. We traveled in the truck all day. From the beginning of the trip, a friend started praising my marksmanship, which allowed me to kill or wound so many Poles. The other guys looked at me with admiration and respect. Perhaps yesterday my marksmanship had saved the life of one of them. However, I myself was afraid that excessive admiration and praise would dull my vigilance. So, in response to the praise, I said that my successes were largely due to my good telescopic sight and basic luck. During the journey some of us leaned against the walls of the body, and thanks to this the fighters managed to get some sleep. I, too, closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. I needed to understand what had happened to me. 2 days ago I had been throwing up after killing living people for the first time. Now, however, I had accepted, or almost accepted, the fact that I would have to do it all the time. Could a person really change so much in just 2 days? Had I become a cold, cruel killer? I couldn't stop thinking about it. But then I remembered the sergeant's words, "If you pity your enemy, it may cost the life of your friend or even yourself." Over the past 2 days, I had become convinced that this was indeed true. And that alone made me come to terms with the fact that I was shooting at living people. I had to kill to save my own life and the lives of others. I had no other choice. Once I realized that, I calmed down.